Welcome to No Compromises, a peek into the mind of two old web devs who have seen some things. This is Joel.
And this is Aaron. For our podcast topics, we keep a document. It was like a Google Drive document. One of the Word version of it. What's that called? The Google Drive Word.
I don't know. Doc. I think it's just
Docs.
like Docs.
Docs. I couldn't think of the word Docs. Okay. Anyway, yeah, Google Docs. So we used to keep this long list of them, and we would put our topics in there and then line strike them out when we went through them. And I started thinking about one day, I'm just like, I want to add more topics, but sometimes I'm lazy on the couch or I can't seem to find that document. And how am I going to add a topic that would be a good idea that we could talk about?
Yeah.
And one of the things I thought about was using Alfred. So I use Alfred for a lot of things. It's a launcher and you can program it. And I was thinking maybe I should use Alfred to make a workflow that I can type in a topic and send it over. And now I need to understand the Google Drive API, and I'm going to have to do an OAuth thing. And maybe I should release that as a tool for other people who want to keep this. And then it's hard to modify a document and all these different things.
Oh, and then you can publish that as a package and, write some docs, and you need a logo for this project.
Right, exactly. And all I really want to do is add something onto the document. And I was my developer brain was just kicking off. It was just like, I'm going to do so many things.
Mine's going right now.
Instead of actually doing the real work I need to do, because there's nothing that feels better than being a developer and procrastinating on something for yourself versus like doing client work.
I wouldn't know anything about that, Aaron, personally.
But then something came to my mind. I was like, first of all, we're using sort of tabular data in a way, meaning that we're having topics and then we cross them out or move them to the done column.
Right. It's pretty structured.
Yeah. Why aren't we using the spreadsheet version of Google Docs?
What's that called? Sheets? No? I'm sorry.
Okay. I don't know. Sheet. Yeah. So I was like, well, we can do that. And maybe that makes it easier to add on to it. But I was still kind of stuck because I'm like, I want Joel to be able to use this workflow too. And I know he does use Alfred, but then I have to package it up and then tell him how to use it. And, he doesn't.
And I'm on one of those M2 Macs and it's not going to work because you're on an Intel Mac. And
yeah. Which, you just told a little bit of our status here. You got a brand new M2 and I'm still,
oh boy.
So, listen for that call to action at the end of this podcast to help me fix that.
That's right.
So, I started thinking what are other ways to do this? And then it came to my mind a long time ago, which is probably months. I remember hearing that Slack came up with this workflow sort of builder tool that they have as well. And at the time that I looked at it, it just seemed to be something that you could program to, I don't know, greet people who just joined Slack.
Yeah.
And that made sense when I worked at a larger company because we had a lot of people we were onboarding all the time. And so you would add them to a channel and then they would get a customized message that told them what this channel is for, where they can find documentation for other stuff. If they joined a team channel, it was all automated. Here's a big old barf of things that you need to know. And so I never really thought that it could do more than that. But I checked it out and turns out it has a Google Drive integration and you can sort of pick where you want things to go and what to do with them. And you can ask questions. It's like a quiz. And basically the short version of this story is instead of building something in Alfred in Slack, I just kind of use their tool set builder that's already authenticated and connected with Google Drive and all those different things to ask a question, which is what's the topic that you want to work on? And then we type it in and then it'd send it over to the bottom of the spreadsheet in Google Drive, and then we're good to go.
Right. And so I worked with you on this. I remember this experience vividly. And we did not write a single line of code. Right. So those Slack workflows, you could, I assume you can publish your own and do this. But as you were mentioning, we use off the shelf integrations that Slack provided. I do recall some frustration. Slack is particularly bad with this, where they'll change something, right? It was a post and now it's a canvas, and workflows were actually, there was classic workflows and new workflows. And we were how do we do that? Because you'd go to the docs and it would talk about something and then you'd go into Slack and that thing wasn't there, and it's because it was like an old version or something. But while that was a little frustrating, I'm confident it still took us less time to do that, even with like the dead ends and old docs and old versions of things, than it would have to do that original Alfred workflow or some other code first type of solution.
It was actually a little eye opening because I've worked with a lot of different people, a lot of marketers and things like that. And you see them using tools and getting so frustrated. You know,
Right.
you can basically be like, if you're a techie or programmer, which you probably are when listening to this, you can figure this stuff out. So we were frustrated, but I mean, it took like an hour or two, nothing
Yeah.
crazy,
Right.
because even when people don't do stuff the quote right way, you've seen this before, and so
Right.
you can kind of figure it out. And it started making me think like a little bit differently of all those different marketers and salespeople and all those different things that are trying to do. You've seen them try to use like a Google Docs sort of thing, and they're like, I can never get this to work, and you're like, oh, just do it. Like, what's your problem? And then I
That's right.
realized that actually, oh, this is what they must be
Yeah.
experiencing. It's just that we have experienced this so many times as
Hmm.
developers that now it's just frustration. And you're like, well, I know I'll get it, but
Yeah.
I just don't know when. Whereas if you don't experience it all the time, you're like, am I even going to get this?
Yeah, and we've sort of like learned how to read between the lines. So like, oh, this documentation was last updated in 2018. Like, oh, maybe this isn't current anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's
Right.
things we do or we figured out just from bumping into it so many times. But yeah, I agree with your point. Like empathy for the quote unquote normal user dealing with software products is a good thing to have as a software developer. Um, so there was another part of this process that I think maybe is interesting to talk about, which is so the everything you described works great, right? You hit a
Mhm.
button in Slack, it pops up a form, you fill out two things, you hit submit, and now you have a new row at the bottom of this Google Sheet. So like before we start recording today, we pull that up and like pick an idea off of it. But then there's the second part of that flow, which is we've recorded that topic, we want to move it. And so we have a second sheet that said completed topics. And your idea, which I thought was good, was like, why not have a button that you just click next to it and it like moves it to that sheet? And that was another
Right.
one, like, seems so simple, right? Like you're literally copy and pasting or cutting and pasting. And I don't think we spent a ton of time on it. But I think after about 20 minutes, we're like, why don't we just cut and paste this like ourselves from sheet to
Yeah.
sheet? And we decided not to try to create the fancy button.
Yeah, I feel like it was even less than that, where it
Yeah,
was
I think you're
like
right.
you looked at it and it's like, this will actually like there's some sort of Google Docs version of macros that you have
Yeah,
to Google Script or whatever program, and I'm just like,
right.
I don't need to learn this.
Right.
Like the amount of time it takes me to learn this, we could
Hmm.
have copied and pasted,
Like
200 topics.
a year's worth of podcasts at least,
Yeah.
right? So,
So,
but I brought it up because I think it's a good lesson too, because even with a no code solution, like don't build something you don't actually need, right? Like we
mhm.
encounter this all the time writing code, but it applies just as much to these tools and other sort of workflow assisters.
I think that's a good point. There's not a like a clear cut rule. I know you like
Mhm.
rules, but there's not a clear
I
cut
do.
rule on whether you should build something, whether you should use no code tools, or
Yeah.
whether you should just deal with the pain. And I
Hmm.
think it's one of those things where you should just kind of look at it, each individual, because as developers, we tend to run towards what we're good at or what we've trained, which is making stuff.
Hmm.
And that then if you're not familiar with any of the tools that there are out there, you might then just kind of stick with the painful,
Yeah.
and not actually look at any of the intermediate tools. And then you have these systems that are completely built on hooking different tools together with Zapier or whatever it
Right.
is. And there's a place for all of those different things. And I can see for years I've kind of looked down my nose at things that were put together with like just no code tools.
Hmm.
And now you just got to start to say, well, you know what? If they're solving a problem, it's good, but it doesn't mean that every problem needs to be solved that way.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And so like since we're already so far behind the scenes on the podcast talking about how we make the podcast, there's one more example I thought of that I think is relevant here, which has to do with tracking podcast statistics. Like we
Mhm.
host this on Transistor and they have great analytics, but like I like a dashboard. I like to have other things on it where we can kind of see like the health of our marketing efforts, this being one of them. And so I had been manually capturing that data like once a week, pasting it into a Google Sheet, and it takes me like 3 minutes. But I think you suggested something called Retool, and there's another one I forget the name of that I looked at. I didn't like as much. And
T-Pain, I think it was called T-Pain. Or no, that's a rapper. Never mind.
But anyways, in Retool, I was able to they didn't have an integration specifically for Transistor, but they had like a REST API integration, and it took me maybe going from like setting up an account to building this maybe like an hour and a half, and it was pretty powerful. Like I was impressed by it. And this tool in particular, I imagine a lot of these low code or no code tools, it had an escape hatch, right? Like you could write a JavaScript function or something if you needed to, which I in fact did need to do to transform some data. But it was another experience, kind of like the Slack workflow, where it's like, wow, I might have in the past just said, well, I'm going to create like a little Laravel command line app, and it'll run on a schedule every week, and it'll pull this data in. And I know how to make a dashboard in Laravel. We do it all the time, right? But just that little nudge to try this other tool, and I'm like, this actually was pretty useful. And for sure, it took me less time, which I think is the goal of this. It's not to avoid writing code. We like writing code. It's what we do. But is that the best use of our time? If I can spin something up in an hour versus maybe like putzing on an application off and on for a week or two, what's a better use of my time? And in this case, it was just get the dashboard up there and don't spend a lot of time on it.
So this weekend I went with a friend, and by the way, we're adults. So I went with this friend to this event, which I didn't really know much about.
Okay.
We're adults, and I thought you could, as adults, go to this event. Just two adults.
I want to hear why you keep saying adults, but
a place called Medieval Times.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and turns out it's not really for adults. I mean, it's fine, but it's definitely silly. And it's, if you ever wanted to know if you're old or not, go to Medieval Times and determine if you have a headache by the time you left from all the children screaming.
Well, now I wonder if it depends. Like, is this a thing that's only on the weekends?
I know it's on Fridays and Saturdays. I think okay. I'm not sure.
I've never been, but I'm just wondering if that factors in like a certain time of day or day of week is more prone to have like the school groups versus the other people.
Yeah. It was funny though, because so there was like jousting and things like that. And sometimes they would miss, with the jousting, like just completely miss the other person. But it's obviously scripted. Right. And so the guy would be like, he realized he got missed, and then he would just jump off his horse and fall over and be like, oh, and all the kids are like, yeah. And I'm just like, what? He just fell. Like he didn't get hit.
A little bit like a poorly choreographed like WWE wrestling match. Like, yeah, where it's fake, but like they didn't really sell it. Right. When you mentioned a place, thinking or like realizing it was definitely for kids, like what jumped into my mind is Chuck E. Cheese's. Have you ever gone there as an adult, like without kids?
No.
It's also very weird.
I'm not married like you are. Okay. So if I went there, I would just be a 40-year-old hairy bald guy among a bunch of children walking around looking a little morose. I don't think that's the thing I'd ever do.
Yeah, I could be up there whipping some skee ball like these little kids. But yeah, and also there's like a weird in between. Like you can't go as a teenager. At least when I was a teenager, we got kicked out because you had to be 21 to enter, or like with a parent. So it's like you either have to be a kid with a parent or an adult. Like that in between spot was no good.
Yeah. Well, I did notice though at Medieval Times that really hammered home how old I am for two reasons. One is I put my head in the stocks. Like for a picture.
Do we have a picture of this?
I have a picture of this. Okay. You don't have a picture of this.
I mean, the show notes would be perfect, right?
And then I stood up and walked away with it around my neck. So that was the first one. And the second one was there's a lot of dialogue happening during the show, and there's like people yelling and then speaking in accents that are not real. And halfway through, I looked over to my friend and I said to her, I was like, can you actually hear? I mean, I can hear everything, but can you hear anything? And she's like, okay, good. She's like, because I know he's talking, but I can't actually hear the words he's saying. It's just so loud. Have you ever had that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've had that experience.
Oh,
Can we turn on the closed captioning here?
so old.
Yeah.
If you want to help Aaron get his new M2 Mac, you can head over to our GoFundMe page and start with as little as $100.
I don't know about that, but you can work with us. And so head to nocompromises.io and book a call to see how we can help you be more efficient in your code.